Hello there, friends. Today, I want to talk about passwords. Specifically, how you can ensure your physical security devices have sufficiently strong passwords and that they're rotated on a reasonable basis. When we discuss the passwords themselves, there are three specific areas of interest: length, complexity, and age. Taking a step back from passwords, we also need to talk about the accounts that use these passwords. For that, there's two main types: users, the kinds that you and I use and we type in on a frequent basis, and service accounts, those used by technology systems to communicate between themselves. Now, you can find millions of articles on the recommended length, complexity, and age for passwords, but there's one source I always go back to. The National Institute of Standards and Technology makes recommendations for nearly all things in the tech space. In a particularly relevant publication on the subject, they make recommendations about service account passwords, those between your infrastructure devices, but rarely, if ever, typed by a human. For those service account passwords, the recommendations are using a very strong password in both length and complexity, and rotating them if you can securely manage them in a centralized vault. So let's talk about what this password rotation process looks like with SecuriThings. Now, SecuriThings has you covered, but many of our customers are hesitant to start using the password rotation feature within the platform, and I can totally understand. If you're being honest with yourself, you know you should be rotating passwords, but that fear is real. I mean, what happens if something goes wrong, or if I can't connect to a device afterwards, or what if that device won't connect back to the management system? After all, it's imperative that your physical security devices stay online to protect your company, assets, employees, and guests. And we know rotating passwords could introduce risk, but we've got you covered with an integrated fallback method. A little bit more on that later. I'm hopeful by the end of this video you'll be convinced SecuriThings can help you rotate passwords because our process is rock solid. To begin, we should probably cover the information you'll provide, and then I'll give you a detailed explanation of each of the steps SecuriThings performs on your behalf. When you kick off a password rotation job, you'll have to specify a few things during the setup. After you've done this a few times, it'll become second nature, but if this is your first time, I want to take a minute to go over what kind of information we're requesting. The first tab in the wizard asks one question: what users' passwords do you want to rotate? This can either be based on role, everyone, admins only, viewers only, operators only, or for specific users regardless of role. Additionally, if you're rotating passwords based on role, you can choose to exclude specific users from the list of accounts to process. If you are rotating a device connected to a Genetec or similar system, you'll have an additional checkbox for using a custom template. Genetec's video management system uses a template strategy for their device-level user management, like the way SecuriThings uses our credential templates. If this is your first time rotating passwords with SecuriThings on devices connected to a Genetec system, you'll need to check this box. There's also the recovery mode checkbox, and this should stay unchecked unless absolutely necessary because it skips some of the internal checks we'll discuss later during the job processing. Now that you're done with the users, let's move on to the password tab. Here you'll specify the password specific information like length and complexity. If you like, you can manually specify a password, but for kind of best practices, it may be best to let SecuriThings generate a random password. If you do manually assign a password, it must meet the minimum complexity and length requirements on the cameras and the video management system, or the process will fail. This is just another reason I prefer to use the randomly generated passwords. In a similar vein, you can define password expiration. This helps remind you when passwords are again due to rotate. Nothing happens with the devices or management system. This just puts a flag in SecuriThings so you know when it's time to rotate again. Lastly, you can allow unsecured communications for this job. This isn't recommended, but might be necessary for specific edge cases. When in doubt, keep this checked. On the Summary tab, this is your last chance to review your settings before telling SecuriThings to begin the work. If you're happy with everything, click on Rotate and the process will begin. Now that you've kicked off the work, you can stay on this screen or go about your business and periodically check in on the task in the automated operations area. We went through an exhaustive process to make sure password changes are handled with care. That said, I want to take a few minutes to tell you what's happening at each step. In step 1, we'll validate that we have all the information we need from the Rotate Password task pages. We have access to the current credentials, we validate connectivity, both from the SecuriThings connector and the management system, and a few other housekeeping items. In the second step, we'll disable the credential template used by Genetec or other similar systems. If it's not a Genetec or similar system, we'll just continue on to the next step. In step 3, we'll start building our working list of accounts. For this, we'll get a list of users the SecuriThings platform knows about, retrieve a list of users from the devices in question, and reconcile the two. If you selected specific users and we can't find those users, the process will fail at this step. Similarly, if users were set to be excluded from work, they will be removed from the working list. We now have our working list of accounts for this device and its related management system. In step 4, we have to build a communications channel, and we're always going to attempt any connection via an HTTPS secure channel. If you deselected the Use a Secure Channel option in the job setup, we'll still try HTTPS, but allow a downgrade to HTTP for communications. Sometimes other web-based settings need to change to allow for communications. In this step, we'll capture the existing settings, which we'll use later, and make whatever changes are necessary. For step 5, we'll create a temporary fallback account on these devices. Before this step is complete, we'll validate the account exists and has sufficient rights. This is a break glass in case of emergency account that will only be used during this password rotation task. If any successive step fails, we can use this account to roll back to the previous passwords. Step 6 is where the actual work is done, and it's not as simple as just assigning passwords. Well, I mean, it is, but SecuriThings takes it a step further. To start, we confirm that the fallback account exists, for safety. Now, if you let the SecuriThings platform choose the password for you, we'll generate a unique random password based on your criteria and assign it to that account. Otherwise, we'll use the password you provided. We do this for each account until the working list is empty. In step 7, we'll make a callback to step 4. If your device needed web-based settings changed, we'll revert to the original settings we captured, returning the device to its identical pre-task state, except, well, for all the passwords we updated. Step 8 is very similar to step 6, but instead of targeting the device, we're targeting the management system. First, we'll validate that the device is online and ready for communication. Then we'll run through the same process, but use the passwords from the device accounts. In summation, each account that was changed on devices will also be changed on their respective management systems. We'll validate the device's connectivity to the management system in step 9. The details of this step are pretty much self-explanatory, but it's still critical for success. We'll pause for a little bit to make sure the management system is communicating with the devices using these new passwords. Most of the time this only takes a few seconds per device, but it can take longer depending on the environment. If the management system can't communicate, then something's wrong, and this is precisely why we have that fallback account. If we encounter problems, then we'll use that account and revert all changes on all devices. Success! All your passwords have been rotated and it's time to start cleanup. Since we no longer need the fallback account, here in step 10, we'll remove that account from each device. In this final step, we do the tidying up after the tasks. This is SecuriThings vacuuming up the sheetrock dust after sanding the walls. Here we're just validating everything we've done and checking our boxes. And there you have it, passwords rotated. This same thorough multi-step process is used if you are rotating passwords on a single device, those connected to a single management system, or thousands of devices. Hopefully by understanding some of the details about how this process works, you've gained the confidence to let SecuriThings handle your password rotations for you. I, for one, can't imagine doing this work by hand when there are solutions to do this work for you, especially with a built-in safety net. So what's stopping you from using SecuriThings to rotate your passwords? If you'd like to learn more about how SecuriThings can help you manage and maintain your physical security devices, swing on over to SecuriThings.com and start a free trial. Take a tour of our demo, or speak with our solutions engineers to get your questions answered. For SecuriThings, this is Kevin Sparenberg, and thank you for keeping us safe.